the game. One reassuring there.
Especially set up nice and low.
Right height.
Yeah.
Cool. This man,
These are really hot.
quite a bit narrow, these chairs, isn't it?
Yeah, they're a bit penned in.
Just waiting for our presenter. Here he comes. Yeah. Start.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Lovely to see so many familiar faces as always. Thanks to everybody joining us from home as well. I'll introduce the panel, not that they need any introduction, but our Chief Executive, Joe Palmer, our owners, Chris and Alex Reedtz, Director Richard Montague, and Head Coach Stuart Maynard. We've got lots to get through tonight, so I won't rabble on too long. The first question is a question about a topic we've been talking a lot about recently, which is financial sustainability. And it goes to Joe, and it's from Daryl Chapman. Will a sustainable future be a barrier for a successful future?
No, in short, but I think probably what I'll do here is actually pass this one to Chris.
Yeah,
It'd be good to hear from the owners, in effect, in terms of how they see being sustainable and obviously what success that can bring, or is it a barrier?
Yeah, sure. No, I certainly don't think that being sustainable means not being successful. I think, on the contrary, I think that is key to long-term success, to be sustainable. I guess the definition of what it means to be a sustainable club is that, well, it can vary from club to club, but from my point of view, it means that we don't depend on short-term success on the pitch. We have a sort of robust financial model that allows us to cope with any variance in football results that always happens. So for us, it's about being in a position where we I think we can look at our time in the National League. We can see where we spent a number of years there. Beforehand, it would have been impossible to predict whether we would be promoted in the first season or it would take more seasons, and so it's really about being in a position where we don't depend on short-term results, and we can be in a solid financial position regardless of that.
Yeah, I think ultimately what we're trying to say is that, just being self-sufficient and sustainable doesn't mean that it necessarily prevents us from having bigger budgets and seeing success. We just have a very different view of the model of what that looks like, and the most important thing is to, from a financial point of view, be sustainable and comfortable, because then you can make more decisions about whether you want to spend more on a playing budget or stay within that sustainability. But if you're constantly catching up, you're always going to run into problems. So it's more about just trying to do things in the right way, but obviously having that cushion that enables us to make clearer decisions about pushing harder if we need to.
Thank you very much, guys. We're going to stick with Joe for the early part of the evening, because we've got issues surrounding ticketing, stadium infrastructure, club infrastructure to discuss. We'll start on the ticketing side. Lewis Seifert has asked, with the increase in our away following, are there any plans for a loyalty point system to be put in place for away games to make sure that the people who travel up and down the country all season are able to have first access to the games that are expected to sell out?
So yes, is a short answer to that. So I know this has been quite a topic. I think we talked about it last time, and a lot of people have spoken to me about the situation with away tickets, and we've been discussing this a lot internally about how we make this work. And ultimately, I'm quite interested tonight to sort of get a sense from you guys about what you think is the right approach, because there are several. And what we've done is we've looked at a number of different clubs, and there seems to be 3 different models that people use for determining priorities for away tickets. The first one is, as we do now, is just simply that season ticket holders have the priority, and then it'll drip feed down from there. The second one is a membership scheme, so it typically charge £10-20 for an away membership, which gives you priority ahead of other season ticket holders. That would be available first and foremost to season ticket holders, and obviously those people that traditionally travel away are going to be the ones that would see that that's a good investment for them. But that's something that's quite a few clubs use that system, so that's one we could look at as well. And then obviously the third one is having a loyalty system. Now, a lot of ticketing systems have this inbuilt and it's already there for them. Ours doesn't at the moment, but it's not to say that we can't. As I mentioned to you at the last Fans Forum, we're going through a sort of data and digital transformation at the moment. So from next season, we will be able to collect information about people's buying habits a lot more easily. In some instances, we won't, because when someone goes to an away game and they buy it on the day, for example, we're not going to have that data. So they're going to be missed off that. There's not a lot we can do around that. So whilst we can't do that for next season because we've not been able to collect all that data from this season, we want to start from next season so that in another season's time, we will have that loyalty system in place. Now, the question I have for you guys is, do you think that it's worth putting in place this away membership program for next season to sort of make sure that we try and cover off some of the problems that we might have for next season? Or are you happy to stick with what we're currently doing and then look for, having a loyalty-based system in 2 seasons' time? What's the show of hands? If I was to ask for a show of hands, who thinks that we should have kind of a loyalty membership, away membership program for next season?
It's quite a number of hands for the benefit of people at home.
Okay. And who thinks that we should just leave it as it is and obviously then put the loyalty system in place the following season? Oh.
Similar numbers, slightly
Did you
less.
count?
Yeah, isn't it? I was hoping this wasn't going to happen. Oh, okay.
I think it's an opportunity after the interval. If you give it some thought throughout the evening after the interval, we'll obviously be opening up the floor for questions. So perhaps we could have a chat about it that way after the interval.
And I mean, we could go more formal and obviously try and put a survey out to get exact numbers, kind of thing. But it is quite split. I think we've got to recognise that this might not be quite so easy. I think, like I said, the view is that we absolutely understand and we want to have a loyalty system in place, but we can't realistically do it for next season given the the lack of data that we have currently on this season's behaviour. So I think we'll have a chat about this, and I think perhaps we'll look at trying to do a survey to get a more clearer indication on which way people want to go. Yeah,
keep an eye out for that over the summer. Hot topic at the minute with season tickets recently going on sale. Matt Cook, are there any plans for fans to be able to pay by monthly direct debit for their season tickets? Many feel this would increase sales, particularly where families are purchasing several tickets and the upfront costs are high. We are
trying this at the moment, so we are in conversation with a provider. We've had several that we've spoken to that haven't worked. We are with one provider. We've just signed a contract today. We certainly are able to put it in for hospitality season tickets. That will still take probably about 3 to 4 weeks from now for that to be available, but we are still looking to see whether we'll be able to do it for normal season tickets, and potentially we may be able to do it within this window, the sales window, but at the moment I can't see that at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Final question on ticketing for now is from Ben Fryer. Are you going to continue /bring back offering free tickets to schools and clubs? Struggling to remember the last time I saw a job lot down at Meadow Lane with their parents.
Job lot, yeah.
I should have potentially.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe some editing on that one. No, we do through the foundation. Obviously, invites a lot of the kids that they work with. They come on match days. We are actually in conversation with the academy and the foundation. We've been working on a new primary program. What's really important for us is I feel that we should have a contact program with kids from the age of 4 all the way to 19. That we should be able to engage with them at every age group. So we're quite clear on where we are from sort of 16 to 19, and we're just looking to restructure what that looks like for, the primary age kids. And it's really exciting. There's a lot of, every year there'll be a specific program for every year group in primary. And as part of that, there'll be a much more structured process about how we bring school kids and their families into to experience match days. And obviously we've still got the capacity to be able to do that, which is great. So it's really important that we're encouraging that new generation of fans. So yeah, definitely we will be from next season a lot more than we are now.
Stadium infrastructure. Stephen Newton asks, when can we expect to see the whole of the Jimmy Cyril stand available for use in case we get bigger crowds and or a big cup tie?
Well, in case we get bigger crowds, that's if we get to the point where we're selling enough tickets, then absolutely we'll open it. There's nothing to stop us from selling tickets in that stand at the moment. We've got the segregation capability in there to have home and away. It's not a problem with SAG, so absolutely. If I hope we do. If we sell out enough, then we certainly will.
What are the roadblocks you would say to doing that immediately?
There isn't any. It's just selling the tickets. If we have enough demand, then.
But why wouldn't it be open now? For example, a lot of people would say Derek Paver's stand is getting quite full now. Why don't you open the Jimmy Cyril to home fans as a sort of
sorry. Yeah, so at the moment, obviously, in terms of resources, because if we opened it up and you sold 10 tickets in there, it's not really, it doesn't make financial sense to open that up, to have the stewards on there, to have people on the bars and kiosks in there. You've got to have a good number. So it's better to try and sell out in areas where we have staffing requirements in place, rather than to open up, an area for 1,000 people and you get 10 in there. It doesn't make financial sense. We'll make a loss effectively on that. So if we're at a point where we can see that the ticket sales demand has gone really high and is flying quite early on, then we potentially would then be able to open up and a new section in Cyril to be able to take home fans. So that's certainly what we'll look to do next year if we're in that position. I certainly hope we are.
Absolutely. Another recurring topic. Peter Denholm asks, are there any plans for a Notts County Museum to celebrate our unique history? I'm sure there are many supporters that would be willing to loan or display their Notts County memorabilia.
Yes, so I obviously brought this one up in the last fans forum, and since then I've had a couple of meetings with some of the heritage group here, so Steve Lamotti and Anne and Mick Chappell, to talk to them about what that could look like moving forward, whether that's in museum or whether it's even just sort of a digital archive for people to look at. The thing that we've come to the conclusion is the lack of heritage items that we actually have. I think over the years some of those have sort of disappeared, rightly or wrongly, but we don't have all the items we've got. Some are in other museums. And I think what we've realised is that there's a first stage before any of this, which is to create potentially an organisation that effectively is there to look after as guardians of all the heritage items that a club has. And a number of clubs have done this quite well, and obviously Portsmouth did it, and a lot of other clubs followed their model, which was to create almost like a charity organisation that is there to look after items, to catalogue the items, to actually acquire items, to look in on eBay and online to find where some of these items, when they come up for sale, to make sure that we can create a collection, but also to invite people who have these items at home. And we're not interested whether how they've acquired them. It's just to know that they're there and that we may have the opportunity to display them at some point in the future. That's the most important thing, that we know where these items are and that they're available for everyone to see. So there's a number of stages to go through on that, but that's certainly the first point is to build up that archive and to catalogue all these items, because certainly in our storage there isn't as many old items as I was expecting to see, and that's something that was reflected in the conversations, that they know that there's quite a few that are out there, probably some in people's lofts, some in other museums, on mantelpieces, we don't know. But like I said, we're not looking to catch people out on this one. We just want to know, could we get access to them? Would we be able to show them, take pictures of them, just to know they're there? I think that's the most important message. We don't want people to be scared to come forward to say, I've got this, I've got that. We're not looking to take them back necessarily. We're just saying, where are they? We'd like to see them, and could we show them?
Thanks, Joe. Moving on to the nest, I know there's a lot of excitement about the nest, been plenty of questions submitted about that. The main question asked is, will there be direct access to the nest, which is sort of diagonally that way, directly behind everybody, from the stadium? So on a match day, will fans be able to directly get from the Derek Pavis car park into the nest?
Yeah, so I think it's probably worth bringing in the other question here as well, which talks about could you provide access from the family stand to the Pavis stand for burger van access. So the view is next season is that we want to open up the stands. So I think before they've been very much segregated. So the Pavis, you can't go from the Cop to the Pavis, can't go from the family stand to the Pavis. And my view is, you want to create the atmosphere, you've got to let people mix and mingle. You've got friends that are in the Cop, even if you're in the Pavis, and that's all part of the match day atmosphere. And I understand that some people might be concerned that people will move and sit in other seats that might be cheaper, but I think we're at a point now where, particularly in the Pavis, given that it's quite full now already, I don't think it's as enough of an issue that we shouldn't do that we shouldn't create a better atmosphere in around the stadium. So very much the view is we want to open those, and that would then mean that following the end of a match, that we'd be able to, everyone from the Cop, family stand and Pavis would be able to walk through the gates directly into the nest post match to have a drink and watch the late kickoff. So that's the idea at the moment. Unfortunately, we won't be able to walk directly from the nest pre-match into the ground, because that has a lot of issues in terms of access control. So people will need to come into the nest and then walk out and enter the stadium as they normally would through the normal gates. But at the end, we'd be able to open the gates between the two properties, and everyone would be able to walk through.
There's been lots of activity in the nest. Can you give us an update, Joe, on the latest? What's been going on?
It's a different colour now. Yeah, ripping loads out. So I have to say thank you to our stadium maintenance team, who have been going above and beyond, ripping bits and pieces out of the nest. But we've basically been decommissioning a lot of the stuff in there. So the old electrics, the old gas, taking out bits of welding bays that we don't need in there anymore, and it's certainly increased the size. So there's a lot going on there. We've got a lot of different contractors in there trying to do things at the same time, trying to get things ready. So we are pushing to be ready for that, for the first England game in the Euros. I can't promise that we will at the moment. There's a lot to do, and obviously there's a lot of regulatory things to go through with the council still as well, with buildings control. So we're certainly pushing our hardest. But yeah, it's really starting to take shape. I think probably by mid next week it will all have been spray painted different colour inside, and obviously it already has outside, and we'll start works of putting the frame in for the TV and the sound system. So yeah, it's very exciting. The biggest challenge at the moment is the toilets, but yeah,
I'm sure we'll be talking more about toilets later.
It's always an issue. Yeah.
Another big project, some of you may have had a peer through the gates, is the pitch. That looks very different now to how it did a week or so ago. One of the hot topics around the pitch, it's a bit of a pun, excuse the pun, is the undersoil heating. What's the situation in terms of connecting it to a boiler? Why is that not happening immediately, and how quickly can it happen if and when we need it?
Well, first and foremost, it's unbelievably expensive, just the boiler itself. So we've put all the pipe work in, so it just needs to be connected, and we've sort of taken the view at this point, because we only had last season one game that was called off because of a frozen pitch effectively. So our view is, look, let's see. Everyone's talking about that this is going to continue, hence why we have future-proofed it. But obviously there's a lot of capital investment going on at the moment, and we sort of took the view that actually this, the boiler was something that we could probably get away with not having at the moment, because the pitch will be better, it will drain quicker, it shouldn't have as many frozen pitch issues. Because of that, they will hold less water in the soil. So if we had to, it would take about 2 to 3 months to put it in. So it's not something that happened quickly, but if we're aware, within several months that there's going to be a horrifically cold snap coming to the UK, then we can probably get that in place. But I think if we get through this year and we think, we've had a few troubles, we'll put it in for next year.
Chris, Alex, could I bring you in on the pitch? It's a huge project for the club. Can I just ask your thoughts on why you wanted to support that project, why you think it was the right thing to do at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think it might come as a surprise for someone that we've ripped it completely off, because it's been a good pitch in this season and in the past seasons, and having a good playing surface is very important for us, something we prioritize. And while it has been a very good pitch, there are just a number of issues with drainage and stuff. So we had the option of either doing something small this year and then keep doing that for a couple of years and not really getting the perfect solution. So in the end, we decided to go with this Premier League style pitch, which will hopefully last for a very long time. But we felt that was the right decision for the club, and hopefully it shows that we take decisions with a long-term view. And I think with the way we play and the way we all want our team to play here, having a good playing surface is very important for us. So that's something we've decided to prioritise.
Stuart, Premier League pitch, no pressure there, is there?
No pressure. The pitch was at a very good standard as well, but I think it helps having the pitch that we're going to now. I think it kind of guarantees you can play up to like 38 games on it without it needing any kind of major work, so it allows us to have a very good surface to play on and play the type of football that we want and the brand of football that we want.
Can you tell us, Stuart, what do you think our own existing players will think when they hear that the club are backing a project like that, and what might it do as well for prospective new signings as well, when you can demonstrate to them that that's the level of investment that's going on to give them the best platform possible?
I think it shows the ambition of the football club, that we don't want to stand still, we're forward thinking, and it will help attract players, because when you look at the size of the club and the fan base, adding all the little extras now like the pitch, the nest and everything that's going on off the pitch, it does help on the pitch to bring players in. So it's something that we're really excited about.
Great stuff. One final question on stadium infrastructure, and it is a serious one relating to the toilets. From Sam Cunningham, could we get an update on the situation regarding the ladies' toilets, please? The last fans forum heard valid requests from female fans asking for these to be updated. Joe, do you have an update on that?
I have to. Yeah. No, we actually had a meeting with Dave, our stadium manager. We are certainly looking. The Pavis the COP women's toilets are particularly bad. So that's going to be priority number one, to make changes in there to make them a bit more comfortable. And certainly the hand dryers as well is one of my big bugbears, because there's nothing worse than putting your hand under there and it doesn't actually dry it. So yeah, we are making changes to those bit
in the
by
boardroom
bit.
as well, right? They don't work in there either.
I know, to change that one. So we are bit by bit, stage by stage. So we've got a programme, and it's not just obviously toilets, but with our turnstiles. I think I mentioned before that some of the turnstiles are not in great shape. Some of them are over 100 years old. In fact, they're the ones that seem to be working better, aren't they? The older ones, rather than the ones that were from the 60s. So, we are, we're not going to do all of them at once because it's just a huge amount. But bit by bit, we'll probably do 5 or 6 a year. And hopefully then over sort of 5, 6, 7 years, they're all they're all done. And with toilets, we'll obviously do that a bit quicker, but bit by bit, dealing with the worst ones first, certainly, and hand dryers. Yeah.
Staying on infrastructure, but moving away from the stadium, it's a recurring question. Pete, a big supporter of the club and of our academy as well, he asks, when will Notts County have its own permanent training ground? And I don't think you're going to get an absolutely definitive answer, but
No.
Joe will handle it as best as he possibly can for you, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, given the capital outlay that these gentlemen have done this year, I don't think we're going to be looking for a training ground right now. It's going to be quite a large sum of money, but we have started the process. Obviously, the club hasn't had one, and it is about time. We know it's really important, so we are looking at the long term, looking at some of the options that there are. I've met now all the councils, and myself and Martin have driven around and looked at most of the green spaces that there are in the county and in the city. It's not a huge amount, I'll be honest. Given the number of pitches that you really need to have, particularly if you want to have the academy in there and you want to have a women's team in there, it's a lot. You've just seen obviously what Forest have done. They're looking to move over to Regatta Way to a very large site over there. It's not easy, but we are having conversations, some interesting ones. So it definitely is on the radar, but probably not for 3 to 4 years, I would think, before we're in a position to be able to do that.
Chris, Alex, how serious an ambition is it for you both to see Notts have its own training ground in the future?
I think that's a very serious ambition in the long term. But yeah, we've got to look at all the different possible investments to make and consider which things are right to invest in at what time. So I think, as Joe mentioned, we're probably looking a little bit more long term with that, but we're always on the lookout for the right opportunity.
Yeah.
It is definitely something that we want eventually for the club to have its own training ground.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Joe's interrogation is going to end shortly. As Notts
No, I
County,
don't think it is.
One last question specifically for you, Joe. John Searle asks, as Notts County women's team rise up the pyramid, is there any prospect of a closer relationship between the two clubs?
Yeah, so we've had this conversation. So we've met with the guys from the women's team a couple of times now to sort of try and work through what that would look like. I think the idea is that we're all of the opinion that it should be under the club. We should bring it back into the fold. Obviously, there's been a history of how it was before and how it was run and how it's managed and the levels of the team and how the youth setup was managed. So there's a lot of things to go through here. It's not as simple as just saying, right, here we go, you're in place. It's a resourcing thing. How do we operate it? It's got to be funded. We're looking specifically at how it can we can make it self-funding as well, and that's really important. But also more importantly, how we can resource the management of it, the board, all those sort of questions. So there's a lot to get through, but certainly it is. We're in the middle of those conversations, and I would hope that within the next season we will be moving towards that, having them on board. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Joe. Right, we're moving on to the subject of team performance. Michael Warren asks, what factors should be accredited to the sudden change in form partway through the season, and how can we make sure we prevent this from happening again next season? Chris, Alex, Rich, who would like that one? Go on, Rich.
Don't jump at once. Yes. I think that's an interesting question. You may have read we put out a statement that ruffled a few feathers a couple of months ago, I guess, regarding performance and how we look at performance. I think that sort of expresses our general view about how we assess how we're doing and how the club is doing and how the team is doing. I think it's also important even if we just look at actual results and not look at the underlying numbers. I think if we look at results, you can really break the season down into thirds. And in the first third of the season, I think we had 30 points from 15 games. And then from that point on, we've sort of gone at 1 point per game, which is clearly nowhere near good enough. So that would suggest that it was more a first third of the season and then second 2/3. But the interesting thing from our perspective is that we weren't really able to perform at a level that we believed would have resulted in promotion for the whole season. So it wasn't just the second half of the season or the second 2/3. We weren't really performing at a particularly high level in our view at any point during the season, which is something that we feel that we need to get to the bottom of, and we need to try and understand, and we've been working to try and understand. But we've been having those conversations for months really about why we maybe haven't hit the heights that we hit last year. Obviously we've gone up a level, and we know that this is a tougher level, but we were still, I guess, a little bit surprised that maybe the performances dropped off quite so considerably as we moved into League Two. So obviously, yeah, that's been a huge focus of ours, is trying to figure out what's been different or what we need to change or what we need to do better next season. And as I say, we've been having those conversations continuously. There's lots of things that we can think about, like the balance of the team, certain signings, of course, how we recruit, how we play. There's lots and lots of different questions that we've been considering. But I think rest assured that we have been considering them, and we are aware that I think our performance over the course of the season hasn't been good enough to match our aspirations. So yeah, we expect to improve next season. That's everyone here's aim and objective, and we've been working continuously to try and make that a reality. I don't know if you guys have anything.
Yeah, just maybe to add to that, I think we've done quite a lot of analysis on the team's performances, of course, and we look a lot at goal scoring chances created and goal scoring chances conceded, because those are the sort of key factors that predict future success. And what we see is that looking at the games sort of early in the season and the games in this year, the sort of the number of chances that we create and the quality of those chances have been fairly similar throughout the season, and similar with the chances conceded. So there's no sort of real evidence there that the team's performance has changed much. Then you can think about why did we convert more of those chances into goals early in the season, or why did we not concede as many chances into goals earlier? But I think a lot of that comes down to randomness, because we still have very much the same players throughout the season. Instead, we don't see a particular reason why Macaulay Langstaff suddenly would have become a worse finisher towards the end of the season than he was early in the season. And just to mention one example, so we feel pretty confident that it's not the case that the team has sort of dropped off a cliff in any way in its performance. But as Rich pointed out, we much more see it as if the whole season's performance has been a bit below what we were hoping for based on last season's performance. So yeah, we're certainly not happy with this season's performances. We would have liked to be. We are as disappointed, I think, as anyone about the league position we ended up in. But we feel like the team did perform at a slightly higher level than what that league position suggests. So we don't feel like the whole thing has to be changed, but the season hasn't been as good as we hoped. So we're very much looking to improve that for next season.
Thank you, Chris. Paul Smith asks, or he says, great to see the club statement on the FA Cup. That's relating to the abolishment of replays. But it seems we haven't taken the FA Cup very seriously of late. Is that an owner directive?
No, it's not. We all want to be successful in the FA Cup, including me and Chris. And we're really disappointed that we haven't had any big success in that competition since we came to the club. I think there was one year where we were not allowed to participate because of COVID cases. I can't remember exactly. That was unfortunate, but no. Otherwise, I think the performances in the FA Cup have not been great. But the FA Cup is no doubt very important for us, and I would love for the club to get one of those big cup ties. I think it would be really exciting for all the fans, obviously, and and for us and for all the staff at the club, and a fantastic challenge for the players as well. So I certainly think we should we want to try and do well there. So
It's also very rewarding financially. So it would be crazy if we didn't take it seriously. I think Stuart can maybe answer from his perspective, but I think it's probably the case in some seasons that managers see it as an opportunity. I can play the backup who's been knocking on the door, and I can use this game because maybe in their minds it feels slightly less important than the week-to-week demands of the league. So I do think that probably filters in somewhere down the line. With use your second goalie or use some backup players. I don't know if you agree, Stuart.
I wouldn't say that we'd use a backup players. I look at that we go as strong as we can when we can. What Richard's saying as well, that at different stages in the season when cup games come around, you might have niggles and a few injuries within the squad. So sometimes it can look like that you're playing a weaker team, rotating a bit, but you're not. You're kind of nursing injuries as they go along. The FA Cup is the greatest competition to be involved in. It's one of the greatest competitions in the world. So it's a competition for me personally, and us as a management team and as a football club. We want to go as far as we can, and we want to bring that game here and Man United at home when the stadium's packed and it's rocking here. So a competition especially that we want to go really far in.
And also, I mean, it's always our goal to build a squad here that, where all the players in the squad are strong. So as Stuart said, even if there's a bit of rotation, that doesn't mean that we necessarily see the team a lot weaker or anything. We want to have several good players for all positions. So I think there's no reason why we can't do well in the FA Cup. Definitely.
Thank you, everybody. On to the topic of recruitment. Andy Taylor asks, do we acknowledge that we have struggled against teams with more energy and physicality this season? Is there a plan to recruit players that can both play but offer more athleticism?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily. I think most of the teams in League Two have been very physical, so it's probably hard to pinpoint and say this is the exact type of team that causes us problems. I think there's probably some games where we perform well against those teams and some games where we perform badly against those teams. I don't know if there's too much of a pattern there in terms of games where we've played well or badly, but I think it's definitely a fair comment that you need a certain degree of physicality to be successful in League Two. So it's for us about finding that right blend of being able to play the way we want, but also having the athleticism and physicality to cope at this level. So, yeah, again, I think we'll probably be repeating ourselves a little bit, but that's definitely part of the plan and part of our strategy going forward is to, as Stuart says, I think, to combat the league in the right way.
Yeah, Stuart, it's a point you've made in quite a few post-match interviews, I think.
No, definitely. I think when you look at League Two, what you've got to take into account as well is probably the strongest League Two's probably been in the last 5 seasons. If you look at, there's a lot of heavy investment in a lot of squads within the league, and if you look at the teams going out the league, Mansfield especially, it took them 4 seasons to put a squad together to kind of get promoted. So that's how strong and competitive the league is. And when you come out of the National League, there's a lot of different variables within that league. Teams set up tactically very different. When you look at League Two, it's pretty much most weeks you're coming up against a similar kind of physicality, teams that are really willing to run hard and press high up the pitch. So you've got to be able to combat that. They're willing to throw the ball in your box at every opportunity, and it's something that we need to be able to deal with. If you look at a lot of the goals that we probably conceded this year, they come from first and second phases, from set pieces and stuff like that. And what they do, they try and make you make errors. So it's something that we've got to get out of our game, but it's also something that we've talked about a lot. We've got to get a balance within the squad that we can cope with all aspects of the game, and I think if we get that, then we'll be fine.
Thank you, Stuart. Andrew Kirk says, summer recruitment left us ill-prepared for the season, and January is difficult to rectify key inefficiencies. What lessons have been learnt?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably along the lines of what we've spoken about there, I would say getting that balance right between physicality, athleticism, and being able to fit the style of play that we all want to play. Probably some understanding, as well, about the particular balance of a team we can put out. How, if you take a team last year that was incredibly successful, maybe even historically successful, the difference where if you take one or two players out of that team, what impact does it have on the team performance as a whole? I think that's been an interesting thing to see going from last season into this season. So yeah, I mean, I think the lessons we've learned have been extensive. I feel like we all understand this level a lot more now. I think it's you can look at it from the outside and you can plan and predict how things will shake out and how certain players will perform. But until you actually live it, then it's difficult to understand that fully. So I think we'll just have benefited massively from last season. The experience of it has obviously been pretty painful, some parts of it, but I think we'll have all learnt a lot from it, and we're better prepared going into this off season than we would have been last season, with the uncertainty about what division we were going to be in and the level that we were going into, really. So yeah, I think we're in a much better place going into next season than we went into last season.
Thank you very much, Rich. Andrew Lord says, with the immediate success of Jatta, can we expect more signings from the continent and in particular Viborg?
I mean, unfortunately, the rules in England make it fairly difficult to bring in a lot of players from abroad. We are realistically restricted to having two players only in the squad, and even those two spots, there are quite strict requirements for which leagues the players need to have played in. So it won't be a huge influx, but we're very happy with Jatta, and I think we're all sort of very excited about bringing in talented players from abroad whenever we can. I think we've seen some exciting players here in the last couple of years with Rodriguez, Sam, and now Jatta. So certainly something we would like to bring in more players like that. But unfortunately, the rules are quite restricted.
But not just from Viborg.
No.
But the rules have been relaxed slightly within the last year, so that when we were in the National League, there was a complete ban on signing foreign players, and realistically, the requirement that a player needed to live up to be signed would not allow any club in League 2, probably not League 1, to sign it. But now the rules have changed a little bit, so we have that opportunity to bring in two players, of which we now have one already. But so there is a bit of an opportunity there, which is definitely something we will look to take advantage of.
Thank you very much, Chris. Sam Cunningham. Richard has previously mentioned that this season's playing budget was mid-table. Where are we projected to rank next season?
Yeah, well, I think it's very difficult to say because obviously your ranking depends a lot on what the other teams spend. So we don't know what the other teams are going to spend. I think we can confidently say that our budget certainly won't be lower than it was this season. We can say that with some certainty. And we believe that presumably should mean that we have a higher budget because we're expecting some of the bigger hitters in the league to have left. So bigger hitters financially, that is. So I would expect us to be higher than we were this year, but we can't say that with any complete confidence just because we don't know what other teams are going to do. Well, obviously we try and keep as up to date as possible on what other teams are spending. Try to understand other teams' budgets so we can assess our own performance. That's very big for us. But yeah, we're not sure at this stage where we'll rank, but we're comfortable in saying that we certainly won't be any lower.
Good stuff, thank you. Robert Hardy McBride has asked, have the club had to fend off unwanted advances for key playing personnel?
Not really. No, not in any notable way. I think there's always interest when you have good players, and thankfully we're in that position. But no, we haven't had any major approaches or had to bat anything away. So nothing to report on that stage.
Lovely. Youth development. Pete Ellis again, as mentioned earlier. Can Notts run a successful academy given the number of Category 1 academies already in the region?
I mean, I think so, yeah. I think, Joe and I have had lots of conversations with Dan Levers, who heads up the academy, and the guys are doing an unbelievable job in getting us back to Category 3 level after just one season at this level, which is just tremendous. And what we've spoken about a lot is, obviously we're surrounded by all these big clubs, we're surrounded by all these Cat 1 academies, which means that if we just follow the traditional path of how you recruit and how you coach and how you educate your players, you probably will fail, because you're just doing it like the bigger clubs are doing it, and presumably not being able to do it as well because you haven't got anything like the same resources. So a big thing for us in our conversations has been about how we do it differently, what we can offer as an academy that other academies that are maybe bigger and have the bigger reach, what they can't offer. So that's going to be huge for us, and I think, I mean, that's basically what the ethos of the club is about trying to find ways to outperform and overperform. So we want to do that with the academy as well, and we see no reason why we can't have a successful academy. It just means that we won't follow the exact same way that everybody else is doing it.
The biggest thing as well for us is this season, since we've come in as well, they've had a lot of exposure to the academy lads, so that starts to spread within local areas that they're actually getting an opportunity to come up and train with the first team. We're of the mould that they've got to be good enough to get into the first team squad and earn that, but there will always be opportunities. We believe in young, hungry players as a management team and as a club. There's no better than producing your own player, and if you can do that, it's exciting for us, for you as fans. It's something that's really exciting to produce your own player and see him putting on the shirt and giving everything for the club that he's come through, right the way from a youngster all the way through. But as a management team, it's something we believe in, and the more exposure we can give the youngsters to training with the first team, the more it spreads, the better level of player that they will be able to recruit in the academy. It won't happen overnight, but it's something that we believe in, and it's something that we've got to be really strong on.
I think safe to say that we're already in a better place than we were, obviously, last year when we were still in the National League with the academy. But I think, you know, regular observers of the academy games will tell you that we are already starting to see, I think, some promising players who could potentially impact our first team. We obviously saw Lucien get on the pitch on Saturday, which was fantastic, and was by no means a token gesture. He's performed exceptionally well in all of the B team games, performed exceptionally well when he went to Boston, and we have more like that. So I actually think that the academy is looking really, really promising at the moment, and I would expect to see some of those players in the first team squad in next season and seasons to come.
It's great to hear. We'll finish the first part of the evening with a few questions for you, Stuart.
Yep.
Matthew Taylor asks, how do we become more solid defensively without sacrificing our attacking intent? Or do we have to give up some of that attacking intent to stop conceding preventable goals?
No, I don't feel that we need to. I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier about the types of goals that you concede within this level. A lot of them are from restarts, so our attacking play and the way that we attack doesn't really hinder that. We've got to make sure that we can combat the oppositions within those moments and be focused enough to defend our own 18-yard box when the ball's constantly getting put on you. We won't change our philosophy. We believe that it works. We talked about the expected goals for and against is so key to gauge on how our performance levels are, and when you look at that, we're limiting teams to limited opportunities. But what we've got to make sure that we can, them limited opportunities, we can actually defend, and defend as a group. It's not just the defenders, it's not the goalie, it's everyone collectively as a group. So it starts from the front. We've got to make sure that we defend our box a hell of a lot better come next season. Is something that we're working really hard on.
Thank you, Stuart. Andy Taylor asks, we've given away an EFL record number of penalties this season. Is there a coaching instruction that the players have to play their way out of danger when clearing the ball would be more sensible in his view? No,
there's not a coaching... it's not in the coaching manual that you coach them to play in their own 18-yard box. When you are a footballing team, it is a mindset of when the ball bounces in around the box, you are looking to find an offloader pass. It's something that we need to make sure and make it very clear that when the ball's bouncing around in your 18-yard box, we need to clear our lines. We have enough possession. We're averaging in around 65%. We have enough possession to probably give up 1% of the amount of opportunities that we could clear the ball. But when you do look into the penalties and you look into it, they're not the similar type of penalty. There's a lot of individual errors within there. There's handballs that probably are not penalties within there. I think 4 or 5 of the penalties, when you look back and watch them back, they're not penalties that have been given. So that number is huge when you're looking at 5 penalties of giving away 17. But yeah, look, it's something that we do need to address. 17 penalties is a hell of a lot within a season, so it's something that we will look into and assess and go deep into it.
Thank you. Hopefully end on a good note here. How's Matt Palmer's recovery going?
Yeah, he's coming along really well. He's been on the training ground. He's kicking balls now. We're very hopeful that within 2 weeks into the start of pre-season, he'll kind of slowly get integrated back into the squad, which is a huge plus. And they're factors that when you talk about the type of season that you've had, there's certain players like Matty Palmer's that are so instrumental to the group, not just on the pitch, but his personality around the place and around the group on a match day, that calming influence that he has on the pitch as well. So when you miss a player like that, it's huge. And I think it's had a huge impact on your season if you probably looked at the points that you picked up when he was in the team and then to the points that you've picked up when he's not in your team. So he's been a huge miss, and he's someone that we're really excited to be working with, and we can't wait to get him back.
You've not had a chance to work with him yet, Stuart. Obviously, you came up against Matt for Wheelstone last season.
I wish we hadn't.
Yeah. What's your view on him as a player, and how much are you really looking forward to working with him next season?
I think sometimes players like Matty Palmer, they go a little bit under the radar in the sense because he doesn't score loads of goals, but what he is, he's that glue between the back and the front, and he's very calming with it. He always picks the right pass. He always gets the next player on the ball advanced beyond the lines. So he's not one that even when you look at his numbers and you go, "Okay, he got loads of assists like Jody Jones this year," but Matty Palmer probably would get Jody Jones 15 of those assists because he gives him the ball, he gives him more time on the ball. So he's such a key player to us, and we're really looking forward to working with him. And you as fans, you know better than me, you've watched him for years, and I'm sure you're excited to get him back.
Yeah, we'll be keeping you all updated on Matt's progress throughout the summer. Right, that's it for the first half of the evening. We'll have a short interval now. The bar's open, 15 minutes or so. After that, we'll be taking questions from the floor, so get your thinking caps on. See you soon. So this is the part of the evening where we open up the floor to you guys. Got two fantastic assistants, left and right, who have got microphones. So let's have a raise of hands. Who would like to ask a question this evening? Okay, we'll start with the gentleman in the blue shirt, Kira, if you'd transport the microphone. Just a note to everybody who's asking a question, to say it nice and clearly into the mic, not only for the people in the room, but everybody watching at home as well. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Damien. My question to everyone on the table is, what are the ultimate ambitions of the owners and the management on the table? Are we looking at eventually getting to the Championship or even the dizzy heights of Premier League one day?
I think in the short term, our goal is to be promoted to League One. I think that's a good short-term goal to have. I think it's a very realistic goal. I don't think there's a huge difference in quality between the two leagues. I think then after that, our goal will be to be promoted to the Championship if we got there. But we'll take one step at a time. Again, I see that as a realistic goal for us because, as I just mentioned, I think, of course, League One is a fair bit stronger than League Two, but it's not a completely different world. Difficult to predict timescale and these things. If we were then so fortunate to get to the Championship, I think then it's a good time to reevaluate the situation because the Championship is a completely different level, both in terms of the gap in quality up from League One is very big, also financially. So I think that's a little bit hard to speculate about because let's see if we got there first, and you don't know what the football landscape might look like in terms of rules and what other clubs are there at that time. But I think we have high ambitions for the club.
Thank
Joe,
you.
just to sort of add to that, Joe, how much headroom from a business point of view, potential, do you think the club has?
Yeah, I mean, because we've had this conversation and sort of looked at some of the financial modelling of is it possible to be able to sustain yourself in the Championship, and the view is certainly yes, we could do, and obviously with the recruitment model we're looking to have, we want to have sort of overachievement of that budget, but the reality is it would probably be kind of in Championship maybe lower quartile in terms of from a sustainability and a self-sufficiency point of view, but as Chris quite rightly said, if you get there, it's then you reevaluate. You need to reevaluate because the financials in the Championship are huge. But can we get there? Certainly, yes. Within the model that we're aiming to have.
Thank you, Joe. Does that answer your question, sir? Good stuff. Who's next, please? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Andrew Wright. I'm asking this question, well, two questions really, on behalf of the Supporters Trust. I'm Treasurer of the Supporters Trust. The first question I'm hoping you'll be able to answer, because you're now operating the building, is can you confirm whether we own the land on which the nest stands?
So we're in the transaction at the moment, transaction process.
Although you're painting it and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's all we're on a contract at the moment with it all. So
that sounds rather vague.
No, we're in transaction at the moment. So we have an understanding with the ownership group. We have an agreement in place at the moment, which means that we can progress the process. We have everything in it, the agreement in place basically, but the actual transaction hasn't taken place yet.
So what will be the ultimate position?
We will own it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So that leads into my second question, which is lengthier, which is there appears to be possibly an opposite situation between on-field activity and off-field activity, and as to which is has the greater priority for the club. Can you confirm what the strategy is to manage that situation?
I don't think there's one or the other on that one. I don't see that there's, you putting more focus on one than the other. You have to put a focus on, the off the field stuff to create a foundation to be able to generate greater revenues to put into the first team. If you don't go through that process, then you'll continue playing catch up. So, yeah, very much the strategy is that we need to restructure everything we have, to commercially to be able to generate greater income, and also things like the nest to generate what you consider non-traditional income streams, which is really important to give yourselves that extra boost. And ultimately that then gives you the opportunity for self-sufficiency with a higher playing budget, and that's ultimately what we're looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next with a question, please? Fans forum with no questions. That's a bit of a concern, isn't it? Gerwin, let's have one from you, please. Thank you, Kira.
Just a question about whether at Clifton, where the B team on the C team play regularly on the plastic pitch, is it going to be replaced? Because it's, I don't know about 3G, it's probably 1G starting.
We're having a conversation about that at the moment, actually. Yeah, I've got Dan in our ear constantly about that surface. So yeah, we're looking at that.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Thanks, Nick. Just wondering what pre-season games have been arranged, as they're all going to be away.
They're not scheduled in at the minute. We're speaking to clubs, so you'll be updated very soon.
Okay.
But yeah, they will be away.
Yeah, they're all away. Yeah, they're all away. Yeah.
We've got to obviously the pitch is has to have time to grow in, and it just won't be ready in time to have a home one.
And Wheelstone are just on their pitch, so that'll be ready for you.
Potentially, yeah.
Thanks, Gerwin. Right, who's next for the question? While you all get inspired, I'll ask a question I want to ask Rich. What's recruitment looking like so far? Have we made any good progress with any targets yet, or what's the lie of the land?
Yeah, I mean we've been active, I think, talking about it since Stuart came in, really. But we've been talking to players who are out of contract. We've been doing an awful lot of work trying to prepare as best we can. We want to hit the ground running. We want some nice early progress. It's not to say that we'll always get our first choices, our second choices, but we have lists and we're going to work through those lists and we're going to try and get the best value we can, and we're going to try and get the best players we can to give us the best possible chance of getting promoted next year, which is absolutely what the ambition is.
Stuart, we had the retained list announced earlier this week. Obviously you were heavily involved in the discussions with all the players. Can you just summarise what sort of a day it was for you?
It's not the nicest day to be in that position when players have to leave your football club that have dedicated everything to the football club and given everything for the club. But it is football. At certain stages in players' careers, they move on, and we have to make sure that we keep moving forward and keep adding to the group now. And like Rich said there, we've been very active on the recruitment side. But yeah, it's not a nice day when players are leaving your football club because they've given so much for this football club.
I think now would be a good opportunity for us to pay a bit of a tribute to the one player who'd actually predated Chris, Alex and Rich, and that's Jim O'Brien. Chris, Alex, yeah, let's have a round of applause for Jim. Chris and Alex, I'm sure that you're both very sad to see Jim go.
Yeah, I think he's been fantastic for the club. He's always performed at a really strong level, I think, and he's played in different positions and he's constantly available. I think a really reliable player and a really good character outside the pitch as well. Someone that helped lead the other players. So yeah, that was I think a really difficult moment to see him leave. But yeah, obviously we had to make some difficult decisions. We're trying to do what we think is eventually the right thing for the team's chances of winning. Yeah, a very difficult decision, but yeah, absolutely want to thank Jim for his excellent contribution that he's made to Notts County.
Just in case he's watching, another round of applause for Jim's contribution to Notts. He will be watching, I know he will be. Hello, Jim. Do we have any questions yet? Back to the man in the blue shirt, please. No.
No, don't think it's on.
Stephen will help you.
Just give it a twat.
I tell you what, sir, while we can sort the sound issue, why don't you say your question nice and loud? I'll repeat it on the microphone for everyone at home.
Very loud anyway. So, this is to Stuart. A bit of an elephant in the room, and I know it's been touched on at previous forums. Short corners. I just want to come back to the last game of the season, which I was watching against Forest Green. We're 1-0 down. We've literally got a couple of minutes left, and we get a corner, and it ends up back in our half. I mean, is that not an opportunity to send the fans away last game of the season, last couple of minutes? Thank you. I'll quieten down now. Last couple of minutes and get everybody in the box and see if we can grab an equaliser.
Just before you answer that, Stuart, so for the benefit of those at home who missed the first part of the question, it's a question about the short corner at the end of the Forest Green match. Why was it not played more directly into the box?
Yeah, I think if you look at the setup of a lot of teams within this league, they've got the advantage physically, so we have to try and manipulate the ball to come in from another angle, and there's certain times that it is frustrating that when it does end up back with your goalkeeper, it's frustrating for all of us, but sometimes the detail on the pass doesn't quite work to get it to where we need to eventually end up to then delivering it in the box. But it's something definitely that we'll look to next season to be mixing it up so that we're not predictable.
Thank you very much. Anybody else with a question? On the far side there in the, I think it's a grey polo.
Hello. Can you hear me? Two quick questions. One, was there a possibility that Jim could join the coaching staff? Was that a discussion? And secondly, what are we doing about the debacle of a goalkeeping situation that we have with the club at the minute?
First question was regarding Jim and the potential coaching role, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Jim did an unbelievable job when he stepped in when Luke departed, and incredibly grateful for that. I think with the structure that we have at the moment, we were comfortable with the number of coaches we have and the staff, so there wasn't felt that there was necessarily a vacancy that needed to be filled, and we want to make sure that we have the correct staffing structure. On the second point, yeah, I mean, we are trying, like, I guess I can't reiterate this enough, we are trying to get better, we're trying to improve all over the pitch, and if bringing in a number one goalkeeper who improves us is something that we're able to do, we will do that.
Thank you, Malcolm. Here we go, right in the middle here.
Hiya. This is a question, I think, for Joe. Everyone's really excited about the Nest, or the fans that I speak to. A lot of people are just wondering, I've sort of boiled it down into two parts, two probably quick answers. Number one, will the Nest be open when Forest are at home for the away fans? And number two, how will it affect, if in any way, the MLSB on a match day? Will that stay run as it currently is, or will that slightly change with the Nest being the main venue for fans before the game?
Yeah. So, yes to your first question. Absolutely. You know, with away fans for Forest games, we want to host them here. We've actually put in place some a lighting system that can change colour to reflect the visiting team, make them feel at home. We hope. I hope that'll go down well, as long as we get it right. So that yeah, definitely. I mean, the idea is that obviously we've got it on our own match days. We've got it on the next weekend for Forest games, but we'll also be open during the week. We want events in there. You know, we're talking to event managers at the moment about different events we can put on. Obviously, we've got a great sound system. We'll have a huge screen in there, so we don't just want to use it, you know, once a week. So there's a lot more that can go on in there, and people will probably be looking at private hire as well. So, yeah, an all-round venue from that perspective. Sorry, what's the second question again? Sports bar. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it will stay as it is. Like I said, the Nest probably, in terms of inside and outside in that space, we might maybe a couple thousand. We can get in there, but obviously, there's a lot more of you than 2,000. So we want to keep all the spaces open and ensure that people are still having the experience they want to have when they come to football. So we'll absolutely keep the sports bar as it is, and those people that enjoy being in there will still be able to enjoy being in there. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. Who's next? Let's have some hands in the air. Okay. Yes, sir.
Safe standing in the cop. I know you were on about introducing that. Is it going to be top level, bottom, middle? Clarification.
Higher or lower? Yeah, no. So obviously we did the survey at the beginning of the year, and we got some really good insight into who wanted to be in there, how many people it would be interested in safe standing, what areas of the COP. So we got a good sense of what that will be. As for when it comes in, it's certainly on our obviously not for this season coming. It's really possibly next season. There's also, we've got to factor in, the impact that the SAG might put on not just us but all clubs in relation to needing, requiring to have safe standing. So that's on an agenda that we're in discussions with still at the moment. So we might have to have a pilot, we might not. We don't know at this stage, but certainly, from not just from a regulatory point of view, but from a fan's perspective, it was very clear from the survey that fans, there are groups of fans that would absolutely love to have safe standing, and we certainly are looking at the opportunity of putting that in, whether that's the season after the next or after that. But certainly, it's on our agenda.
On the subject of structural changes to the stadium, it won't be long before the Derek Pavis corporate area is going to be reconfigured to accommodate an enhanced hospitality offering next season. Joe, do you want to just talk a little bit about the view on hospitality for next season? Seasonal memberships going on sale on Friday, of course. Yeah,
and I think first and foremost, I just want to say massive thank you to the people that have moved. To be able to put the hospitality seats in, it's been great. I had a conversation with a few of you, and really the club's very, very appreciative for your cooperation, understanding of what we need, what we're trying to do here, and what we need to do. Obviously, in the 3 lounges we've got 450 covers, but in the stadium we've got 200 padded seats. It just doesn't add up, and it really limits what we can do there. So obviously it's really important to increase that capacity out in the stands, and people have been really great in moving to seats nearby, but still, these are seats that people have sat in for some time. So massive thank you to those people for doing that. And so there will be changes. I think tomorrow, is he in here? Adam? Tomorrow, some of you guys will be getting calls, obviously, to talk through the various options for next season in terms of the different packages, the different offerings, and the seats and where you'll be sat. So, it's going to be a lot of change. We've done a lot of things this year to hopefully move us forward from next season. So, you'll be hearing very shortly from Adam and his colleagues, if you're in hospitality at the moment, about what's on offer.
Thank you, Joe. Right, who's got a question? Come on. In this corner here, Kira, please. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ian. Just a couple of quick questions about kit-related issues. First one, how far down the line are we with regard to the designs for next season's kit? And secondly, can anybody give me the answer as to why, for a lot of away games this season where we've played in black and white stripes, we've gone to white shorts? Because historically, playing in white shorts with black and white stripes has been a total negative for Notts. We've been relegated numerous seasons when we played it, and one or two of the games.
We won't be wearing that next season.
Yeah, well, good.
Yeah.
Make sure we ain't got white shorts.
Yeah, one or two of the games, there seemed no reason why we would play in white shorts. Anybody can answer that one?
Yeah, I can. Jenny over there, who is our club sec, she'd be able to explain why. But I'm pretty sure, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, that the league make us change. Is that right, Jen? Yeah, the league make us change if they think there's some kind of clash with any other bit of the opposition kit. It sometimes looks absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and it is
some of the
ridiculous
things that they pull you
sometimes,
up on, but I believe it comes down from the league, and if you don't obey, you'll get in trouble.
Socks as well.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
And on the other thing, yes, the kit designs.
Yeah, the kit design. So they're already in production. So we've had the samples through. The home kit does look really good. I think we all agreed it's going to be a strong one next season. So yeah, looking forward to it launching. And I think the other exciting thing is that we will have a third kit as well next season. So yeah, something to look forward to. Yeah.
Right, whose question is next? We'll work from left to right. So we'll go to the gentleman in the home shirt, and we will work all the way across there.
We've got some players at the team who had a really standout season individually last season. Are we confident in keeping them players? And if they are to go, have we got a plan in place on who we could recruit elsewhere?
Yeah, we've always. I would like to think we always have a plan in place. As you say, we've had some stand-up performers this season. I think we've had a lot of good performances from individual players. So of course there will be interest from other clubs and clubs higher up the divisions. But as always, our approach is that we will only sell players if we feel it's positive for the club, and we are confident with the squad planning for next season.
Thank you for your question. Anybody else in that corner before we move this way? No. This one next, please, Kira.
Thank you, it's Andrew again. So this is more of a football-related question. After the I don't know what word to use. I'll use debacle of the previous owner's relationship with our neighbours Nottingham Forest. We started out with the new owners in a very good mode in having a good relationship with Forest. We got two excellent players, Yates and Grant, to come and play here, which I'm sure did them some good as well. But the relationship with Forest doesn't appear to be very much above the radar at the moment. Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about any relationship we might have with Forest and how it can benefit Notts.
No, I don't think that's certainly not the case. I think we've got a perfectly good relationship with them. Obviously, the new chief operating officer over there, Paul, is a good friend of mine. So we're in regular contact. We've got a call with him on Friday. So yeah, I don't think we've not. Certainly not an issue.
In terms of the young players, I think it's more just sort of a random thing that there hasn't been a particular player that we've wanted from their 21s that's been appropriate, or so it's certainly not like a deliberate strategy or anything like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else in this area before we move across? Yes, sir. Just behind the pillar there.
Just going back to the catering situation. Could I just bring up about the kiosks which are behind, well, in particular the one that we use, which is behind the pavy stand. Yeah. They're very, very poor. The tea, coffee, which we've had on numerous occasions, we've had to take back because it's cold. We've had problems with their sausage rolls, which are, well... I will leave that one, but so I wondered if there was any plans to improve the kiosks. I don't know about the cops behind the cop because obviously we don't go there. Yeah. But behind the pavy stands, they are particularly poor.
Well, I think I've mentioned a few times that the provision we have here for GA catering is not great in terms of the we don't have a lot of space. We don't have a lot of space, which means we can't produce a lot of interesting foods. It's very basic. We don't obviously have fryers for chips, that type of stuff. But I think this is one of the fundamental reasons why we've created the nest, is that a large part of that will be about the food provision. So having external, caterers and changing them, different weeks. Some will be the same, some will change. Just and see how people react to the different types of foods. But we'll have all sorts, whether that's chicken, fried chicken, whether it's Mexican, whether it's whatever. I think that's the point, is we want to have a bit more variety, and I think that will then have a knock-on impact on what we then do in the kiosks. So we've got to consider the whole sort of catering strategy, and what we're offering over there. We don't want to be offering the same here, so it's kind of mixing it up. So yeah, it really will be a bit of testing next season to see what people react to.
Still be open, or will they close once they?
I'm hoping they'll still be open. Yeah. So the idea is we want the nest to be pre-match and post-match. So whilst we'll probably be closed at half-time because the logistics is just too difficult for everyone to get over there and come back, but pre-match, yes, you'll have the space in there, and you'll be able to have the food, and it's then a case of whether we can get those caterers to stay for the post-match that we'd have then. But again, it comes down to what the caterers want to do.
Thank you. Anybody else around here before we sweep across? Okay, in this half of the room. Yes, Pete.
This one's for Stuart.
1 second, Pete. If you just wait for the microphone. This is your moment on the mic, Pete. Don't let it slide, pal.
Thank you very much. Last season we conceded 86 goals, which is the worst in the division by some way, and certainly far worse than the teams that got relegated. How much of that is down to the style of play? And by that I mean, of our 10 outfield players, the majority of games we played with 3 what I would describe as defenders, and the rest were attacking players, particularly the wing backs, who are 5'8" at best, can't head a ball, haven't got any natural defensive instincts. Is that the main reason why we concede so many goals? And therefore, do you need to change to a more compact formation with a back four with proper fullbacks?
I think if you look at a lot of the goals that we've conceded, there's been a huge amount from individual errors, and we've talked about now the balance of making sure the balance of the team, you have enough attack-minded players but enough defensive-minded players, and I think that's the key, that we've got to make sure we get the balance right to combat the opposition. I think that's so key. And if you look in recent weeks, we're slowly changing structures in different ways of pressing to stopping the way that teams can attack us, and making sure that there's more defensive-minded players in their better positions.
Second question, if we get a lot more athletic, tall, powerful players in the team, are we going to change the approach for set pieces? Because we seem to be the only team in the world that doesn't see set pieces as an opportunity to score a goal.
I think we've scored quite a few from set pieces this season, in different phases. I think sometimes you can see a phase of play from a direct set piece that it ends up in the ball or first and second phase. I think if you look at...
We had this discussion with Luke at the last Spanish Forum, and Luke was
it's something that we'll be working on.
That approach, yeah, and I deliberately try to watch the ball being played around and ultimately get it in the box. We don't seem to get it in the box very often, even when we pass the ball around 20 passes.
Look, it's something that we need to look at and mixing it up. I agree totally with it. I think we can't become predictable in any way that we attack, and that's in open play and from set pieces. We need to make sure that we're not predictable. It's something that we'll strongly be working on, and it's something that we need to. In the summer, like we said, we're working so hard on the recruitment to make sure can we have players that that's one of their strengths, that from set pieces can they come and attack it and score goals from it.
Yeah, good. Glad to hear that. Because that seems to be the problem. We have become predictable. When we started doing short corners, we caught people out. But it doesn't take long to watch the videos to find out that's what we're doing all the time. And we seem to just have a priority of getting the ball back in play quickly. And now all teams do is they put 2 players out there straight away, and they force us to play the ball backwards and backwards and backwards.
Yeah, look, it's something that we will be working on to make sure that we're not predictable for next season.
Thank you, Pete. Anybody else in this area of the room? Alan Higgett, Notts County legend.
I'm not sure about that, Nick, but thank you. This one's for Stuart. Just a quick one on the coaching side. How did you find the transition from Wealdstone to Notts, from doing several training sessions a week to probably lots of training sessions a week? Just wondered how you found that.
Yeah, it's been really good. It's been good to get contact time with your players. The more that you can work tactically with them on the training field, the quicker that they take the information on board. So from us coming from that part-time environment of only having 2 evenings a week, which was very difficult to try and make sure that you get the key points across to them, now we have a hell of a lot more time to do more video sessions and work on the opposition more and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been really good.
And have you found that some of the things that you thought you could do, or an idea that you had, that Notts were already doing that anyway? Anything like that? For example, you might want to show certain videos that you think you couldn't do at Wealdstone, but Notts were already doing that kind of thing?
Look, I think you get a lot of chance to do is you get a lot of chance to do team-related video sessions, but you also get a chance to improve individuals and different units within the pitch as well. So you get a lot of more time scheduled in that you can work as a team and individually to improve them, whereas at Wealdstone we didn't get that. It was kind of, we had to focus it solely on the team because it was very hard because of the time. So yes, it's been very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Stuart, how's your pre-season planning going in terms of, have you actually set dates of when players will be back and what you'll be doing in certain weeks? Is that already in the bag?
Yes, it's already organised and scheduled already. We'll be back on the 27th and 28th for 2-day testing, and then the lads will get a weekend off, and then we'll be fully up and running and ready to go.
What does the Stuart Maynard pre-season look like, would you say?
Look, I think the days of when you come back, you're just running the lads into the ground from minute one after the testing, the balls come out. There's different ways of getting the lads fit, and we believe tactically you can get fit on the training field with the balls, so the balls will be out from day one, and we'll be working very hard.
Thank you, Stuart. Do we have any more questions from this central gathering here? No? Okay, we'll sweep over to the right. I think there are a couple. Yes, lady in the white top first, please.
So, asking on behalf of Chloe, any plans to increase the size of the club shop? Can get quite claustrophobic in there on match days, and maybe an opportunity to increase trade.
Yeah. So the shop is, there's a lot going on with retail at the moment. So we've, I think I mentioned before, we've identified a new fulfillment stock room. I think it'll be, what we had before was a cupboard. So we've now dedicated a whole room, almost classroom size room, to stock, which means we can stock a wider range of clothes, more of them, which means we can get them at better prices, hopefully. So there's a lot of changes there. The shop is something we're considering. The first thing we've done is to plug a hole in the roof, so hopefully it stops leaking. That was number one. But number two, obviously, there is the opportunity to expand it a little bit within its current demise with the bricks that we have there. Obviously, longer term, there may be potential future readjustments of that ground floor area of the Hayden Greenstand, where it could be a lot bigger. But it's on the radar. It won't be happening next season, but possibly the season after it. If we can make it happen quite relatively simply, we will do, yeah.
And just on that note as well, obviously there's always a big demand for shirts.
Yeah.
And we always fall short every year. Any chance of getting a bigger quantity?
We've definitely upped the numbers this season, that's for sure. We didn't want to be caught out. I mean, again, it's a difficult one because it's easy just to order loads and loads, but obviously that massively affects then the margin that you make on them. So the profitability drops massively if you've got a huge amount of stock left over. So you do try and keep it as close as possible, but at the same time you don't want people to miss out. So it's not easy, and every club I know suffers from the same problem. They either go too much or too little. You're always going to be, but certainly we've ordered a lot more this year.
And just on a last note, have you ever thought of sort of maybe putting it out there for volunteers to help around the club?
Yeah, it's been a discussion. Yeah, it's certainly. I mean, obviously, the guys that I've been talking to about Heritage, obviously, doing it from a volunteer perspective, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah, it's something that I've been very used to in previous clubs. A lot of those clubs were built on volunteers, but certainly it's something we need to look at. The one thing I would say is one of the challenges with volunteers is managing that process. It can be quite difficult, particularly if you've got a lot of volunteers. So we just need to have that resource internally to be able to manage it properly, and to reward those volunteers properly. The last thing I want is to sort of bring people in, get them doing a lot of work, and just they're not managed properly, and not being able to reward them in the right way. So, yeah, definitely something that I'll be thinking about for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in that corner of the room? Malcolm again.
Hello, just touching on the last one about Club Shop, Joe. Any plans to introduce any sort of discount, given I've got 2 young sons who would have me spend most of my yearly salary in the Club Shop?
I'm trying to think of. I don't think we've got a discount attached to the season ticket at the moment. It's a difficult one. Obviously, it's the more discount we give, the less profitability we have in the club, the smaller the playing budget. It's just one of those things that goes round. So we hope that we're competitively priced, in a way that we're not overpriced where we should be giving discounts because it's too high.
I say it more though as like a loyalty situation, like you were
talking
earlier. Also, it's quite it's quite galling.
Absolutely.
When I go into the city centre on Saturday and I've got to look at that awful shop just off the square who was selling shirts at 20 quid, and it's actually damaging my eyes. That's why I've got glasses.
So look,
I didn't have glasses before the weekend, but
there's two good points there actually. Yeah. So absolutely. So you're absolutely right that from a loyalty point of view, we obviously, as I mentioned before, we're going through this data transformation, which means we'll be able to look at this loyalty system for away tickets. And certainly there are a lot of ticketing systems that already have these things inbuilt, like Team Card is one of the ones that has a loyalty program and that can relate to discounts on stuff like that. So certainly I know we've certainly just discussed it with our data consultants about in terms of how that might look as a loyalty scheme in the future. And yes, that potentially could include discounts, but it could also include money can't buy opportunities as well. So it just depends on what that reward would be. But certainly we want to get to a point where we would have a loyalty scheme. Absolutely we should. And as for the shop in town, I completely agree. And we have had discussions with effectively the tourist board, Marketing Nottingham, about the situation there and whether we'd be able to have shirts. And we're ongoing in that conversation. And hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel there.
Thank you, Malcolm. Any other questions? Yes, Casey.
Is it?
Yeah, you're on.
Well, yeah. So my question is quite broad, but I'll start with Stu. I just want to know, Stu, did you feel at all let down by the sort of recruitment that we had this season? Because I'm not trying to jump out or be disrespectful or rude, etc. But I mean, post Christmas we were below average in terms of our results, etc. And I know I get it. Okay, we're a newly promoted side, and all this and that. But we were top at one point of the season, especially when you consider the teams such as Doncaster, who were 10 wins on the bounce towards the end of the season. That's fine, but we beat them twice. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts on that is. Not only that as well, I remember at one point in the season it was Swindon away, and the away end were sarcastically chanting Stuart make a change. But then when you look at the changes you had to make, we're losing 2-0 in the game and you've got 4 defenders on the bench. What impact is that going to make on the team? And that's where my question kind of broadens out really, because I want to know what sort of personnel we're actually looking for in the summer, because we had a collection of 3 goalkeepers, and it was almost a game of guess who in terms of who's going to start in the games. For example, not only that, we've also lost big personalities as well. Obviously, we've lost Jim, and that speaks for itself. We've also lost John Bostock. Jody's came out quite publicly and said he's not only one of the best people he's met in football, but also in terms of life itself. And when you consider Jody's form last season, that went by fluke. Obviously, of course, he's a good player, but it helps with the people he has around him. And obviously, John's not going to be there next season. So I just want to know, like, what is the personnel? Because Jody said in that statement that he's looking forward to the next group of players that get to meet John. So what kind of player are we looking forward to introducing to our group?
First and foremost, just on the recruitment in January, I think the club done an incredible job in January in the sense of it's one of the most difficult windows to do business in, and they added Scott Robinson, who you can probably all say now's looking a top player, and Jatta as well. Like, he's come in and we all love him. His personality's rubbed off on everyone. He's hit the ground running, so it's a very tricky window to do business in. And we've had a lot of injuries this season. I think when you look at our bench since we've come in as well, there's been a lot of people in the treatment room for one reason or another, so that does have that detriment to the squad, and does become frustrating for everyone, for fans, us as a management team, for the owners, for everyone. When you can look round at the bench and you know that you've got players injured that potentially could come and have that attacking impact. It's something that, like you said, we've been working very hard on now. We want to make sure that the squad's competitive, as we talked about in cup games, that if we have a few niggles, it's not about rotating, it's about making sure that when the player comes in, that we have a similar level of player coming off the bench within the squad, and it's something that we want to make sure that we're strong on, and we're really excited about some of the players that we're looking to bring to this football club now.
Thank you, Casey. Right, we'll work our way back this way. Anybody else in that corner of the room before we get to Pete in the purple jumper? Oh, one more with Malcolm in the corner.
Any plans to change club captain?
Look, I think
I'm not expecting a public response to you. Let me just explain. For me, when you're all the way through football, normally the first name on the team sheet would be, and for me that means a player that's performing at consistent high levels. And I just don't think that, as an individual, is a great guy, but for me, he just doesn't exude that level towards the rest of the team. Also, when we've been down in games at various points, he's not, for me, demonstrated the level of leadership required to ultimately get to where we need to be.
I think it's easy to forget the season that you've just had previously in getting promoted. Cammy was your captain, and he led you to success. During that season, that was a tough season, having to make sure that every time you looked at the other results coming in, that other teams winning around you, that you had to win every week. So I think Cammy done an incredible job. I think if you look at it as a whole, I think as a football team, as a club, at different stages within this division, we've found it very difficult. We've conceded a hell of a lot of goals, which we all know. I think the defence, before I even come in, have took a lot of stick for that. I don't feel that it was totally fair on them, because I think it's collectively as a team that we defend from the front, and the types of goals that we conceded as well. So I think it's very easy to forget about players, what they've kind of done for the club and given for the club, and how they've led the club to success. And I think this season, it's been a very tough season for everyone involved.
Thanks, Malcolm. Anybody else in this territory before we move to Pete? Raise your hand, Pete, for the benefit of our microphone assistant. Go on, Kira.
This is really for Rich, I think. Squad makeup. It was noticeable last season that we appeared deliberately to go with a fairly small squad, probably based on the experience in the National League where we had more flexibility in the transfers. In the end, it proved perhaps not to be the right decision because of the injuries that we had. So, will we be going for a slightly larger squad? And secondly, last season we seemed to want to recruit young under-21 players like Ollie Tipton and Jaden Warner, who were basically first-time loanees. Is that the right sort of player if we're looking for more experience?
Yeah, so on the first point, I think that's a fair point about squad depth in the National League maybe not being so much of a concern because you can bring players in right up until March. I think one of the things we would like to add a bit more of this off-season is a bit more positional versatility, so we could have players who can function equally well in a number of roles. I think that can be the way to combat some of the issues we've probably experienced this season. I think we spoke at the previous fans forum about the judgment that we made with Matty Palmer and maybe how that backfired on us in terms of Matty's availability in the last 2 years and then an ACL bam out for the season. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that we will reflect on last year's strategy and try and improve on that. In terms of the loans, I think sometimes what gets forgotten with loans as well is that they fit into an overall budget. So we'd obviously spent most of our budget at various points in the season, and if you bring a young loan in, more often than not they're going to be very, very good value for money. So they might not contribute hugely on the pitch, but they can still be a valuable squad player. And I think in the case of Ollie Tipton, the intention wasn't really for him to necessarily push to be in the first team. With Jayden, I think we saw a player that had played in the Championship this season and done very well in the Championship this season, and it might be, whilst he probably took a lot from the experience of being here, it might be that dropping a younger player into a team that had already conceded a lot of goals wasn't necessarily the correct approach, and we'll reflect on that, of course, as well. But I think in general, if you can recruit younger players on loan to come in and join you, they can be a massive asset because they cost you so little, and invariably they're fit and they're eager to impress, and they can sustain the rigours of the season. So it's just getting that balance right, isn't it? And I mean those are all the conversations that we're having at the moment. How do we balance off the younger players, the loan players, with the permanent signings, the versatile players who can cover lots of positions, and how do we make sure that we're best covered to go into the season? Obviously you're going to get freak injuries and freak moments, but we want to try and be as well prepared for that as possible.
Thank you, Pete. Anybody else with a question in this area? Yes. Just the blue shirt there, Kieran.
This is just on a lighter note. We've got these new speakers in last season. From a personal point of view, I think they're fantastic and really add to the atmosphere before the game. When are we going to get our own song? So we've got something across the Trent, which I don't care to remember, but something like Sweet County of Mine just before kick-off. Something along those. Any ideas?
I love a bit of walkout music, I have to say. There's some great tunes out there. Yeah, I mean, look.
That's Nick's area, isn't it?
Yeah, open suggestion.
Well, I think we talked about this at the last one, or certainly a previous one. And my personal view on a club anthem is the club can't dictate what the club anthem is. It usually happens organically. It's usually a historical ties to that club in some way, or the culture of the city in some way. For me, it's not something that we can dictate to you guys as a suitable anthem. It's something that has to happen organically. Now, whether that's the supporters groups contributing to putting out a survey, or helping us put out a survey where we can start to build this understanding of what songs really resonate with the fans, or whether it happens naturally over time. I mean, Liverpool's new anthem comes from them playing Dua Lipa after a cup final about 5-6 years ago, and now it's the biggest song associated with Liverpool. So for me, it doesn't just happen that we go out with a club statement before a game and say, this is our new anthem now, everybody's going to absolutely make the stadium rocking, just like with a click of a finger. So
yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think you would probably also find it a bit weird if suddenly we came with a random Danish song or something. So I think it's better for you guys to work it out.
Good work.
We need to go through a process.
Just one final question as well. What's been the highlight for everyone on top table of this season, and what we take away from it?
I'll have a go at answering. I love Jatta's double at Bradford. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a fantastic team performance. I was delighted for Stuart and his staff as well, because I thought Crawley was a good performance. Not Crawley, yes it was. Newport, sorry. It was a fantastic away performance as well, but I thought Bradford, we were absolutely sensational. And seeing Jatta score a couple of goals as well was a massive highlight for me.
If we're talking football-wise, yeah, I'd probably say, I actually probably say the same. I would, because I think we were, given what we went through to get Jatta here, and that process, and obviously with the visas and everything, and to see him come out and do that, it was just like, yes. It was a great moment. Yeah, really.
Chris?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wish you would have asked about the previous season, but anyway, but anyway, I think I do think we had some games we played great football, particularly in the first half of some games, and maybe the second half wasn't quite as good. But I think there was some good, some memorable home games there where we played very well. Yeah, that's a good example. But yeah, I would agree. The Bradford away game was certainly a really nice game.
Alex, do you have a view?
I always find it tough to pick one moment like that. I agree the Bradford away game has been probably one of our best performances this season. So in addition to the nice moment of Jata scoring those goals, I think just generally that performance really pleased me. And then I think generally the way I look at it and the way Chris and I look at it is there might be some moments that, might not be the obvious one that this was a great moment this season, but I think we've had a couple of performances, and I think the one that win against Colchester was a very good performance, and I think it might not seem like a really sort of exciting one, but generally I think generally games that we've dominated it when we look at the number of chances we created and stuff like that. I think there has been some good ones, but yeah, it's tough to pick out. I do think having Macca winning the Golden Boot is also something worth mentioning.
Rich, I wouldn't want to put words in your mouth, but what about seeing Scott Robertson sort of blossom since he arrived?
Yeah, that's been great. Yeah, I think we were really excited about that one before it happened. I think those are the sort of signings that you love, where maybe somebody's fallen out of favour somewhere and you think actually there's something there, and the data points us at him, and the eye test matches it as well, and then seeing him come in actually do so well has been really, really exciting. So I've enjoyed that a lot. I've got two moments. I enjoyed both MK home and away because I thought we played well in both those games, and being at Stadium MK after 4 years of being at, sorry, no disrespect to all of these
Wealdstone.
other clubs. A little bit Wealdstone, but the other clubs in there. And actually being like, okay, we're back now. We can start to, this is where we belong. This is where we'll continue to be. That was really nice. So going there and realising that, we're going to be at these levels going forward, and we should be aiming for playing in stadiums and arenas like this and performing well in arenas like this. That was really cool. And then Lou Macari's winner at Gillingham was a great moment because he's the best guy in the world, and that was a lovely moment for him.
Thanks, Rich. Stuart, that was a joke about Wealdstone. What's been your highlight of your time at Knox so far?
I think the Bradford away win, for Jata especially, because it's not easy when you come over from a different country to settle in, and I was delighted for him, the reception that he got from the away support, and the away support that day was incredible. But I thought the whole performance on the day, especially the clean sheet, we defended our box so well within that game, and there were some big moments within that game that could have gone in a different way, but the way we controlled the game, especially with the ball on the ground on a sandpit, basically, probably one of the worst pitches that I've experienced in previous years. So it was an incredible performance all round, really. But to win 3-0 and get a clean sheet is something that we need to strive for. The clean sheets. We're always going to score goals. We're an attack-minded team, and an attack-minded football club is what we want to do. We want to attack first and foremost, but we've got to make sure that next season that we can get more clean sheets, because it's the clean sheets that bring you real success, and that's the aim, really. So, but yeah, Bradford away, it was some performance, and obviously Colchester at home, like Alex alluded to as well. It was probably our most comfortable win. When you reflect back on the game and you look at the performance, there was lots of moments where they couldn't get out of their defensive third, where we had them pinned in, and that's very key, that we got to make sure that when we attack structurally behind the ball, we're very good, and when we got it right within that game, even though when they cleared the ball it come with another wave of attack. So when we talked about earlier, will we change the way that we play to defend better? We've got to make sure that the structure's right, that when we attack, so that when teams counter on us, we're ready to we'll counter-attack off of their attack as well. And I think we've done that unbelievably on that day against Colchester. And we probably deserve more goals. If Jatta was fit for that day, I think he probably heads in 2 or 3 at the back post. We stood a lot of balls up to the back post. So moving forward is something now that we have another kind of chink to our armoury now with Jatta in the team, that we can stand balls up to the back post. We've got Maka, who's lethal in the box, which we all know about. So I think there's some combination moving forward, and it's very exciting that the amount of goals that possibly we can score next season, again, not just making sure that defensively that we're much tighter.
Stuart, just on Jatta before we move on, he was missing for the last few games. Can you just shed any light on that?
Away at Walsall, when he crossed the ball for Maka to score the goal, he kicked the bottom of the defender's boot and he got a slight gash in it, which he had to have stitched, and it's been very sore, and it's something that towards the back end of the season it's not been worth risking, and we want to make sure that when he comes back in pre-season that he's firing on all cylinders. So yeah, that's what kind of had happened to Jatta.
What do you think a pre-season will do for him in terms of, I think he's going back to the Gambia, isn't he, over the summer, but having been at the club now for a few months, he's got that sort of out of the way now, and he'll just be able to fully focus on his football, presumably from pre-season onwards.
No, definitely, but I think he's settled in so quickly. He's settled in quicker than what we thought. He's had a bigger impact than what we probably would have thought. Kind of moving from another country, it's very hard. You come away from your family and your friends, and you're settled where you are, and then you come over and it's all new. And he come into a very difficult stage in the season where we wasn't on the best of form, but he come in and embraced it, and he kind of put the smile back on the fans' faces, I'd say, and gave you that real hope again. And I've just that's him, and we're really excited about him coming back pre-season, and he'll just settle in like he did, and we're really excited to be working with him next year.
Great stuff, thank you very much. Any other questions? Moving to the left. We're going to move back to the right then. Is that Wendy in the back? Hello Wendy, how are you? 1 second, let's have the mic, Wendy, so we can all hear you.
I was just thinking that possibly you could suggest to the away shirt sponsor that he write us an anthem, because it's that's his day job, isn't it?
Okay, I'll pass that message on, Wendy. No problem at all. I'll give Mr. Bug a ring on my way home.
Do
tonight.
we get to keep the rights to it though?
We'll stick on this side of the room for now, and then we'll come back to you, Gerwin.
I just want to say that 4 years ago we were looking at our club going into oblivion, and since Chris and Alex have been at the helm, they've done an absolutely fantastic job.
Just on the back of that, Chris and Alex, we were talking at the recent EFL Awards, and we were talking about how quickly the time seems to have gone since you arrived at Notts. Has it gone in a flash?
I feel like it's gone quickly. Yeah, it's been a really good time. I think it's been. I think when we came into the National League, we didn't really know what to expect, and the first season was quite unusual with the COVID lockdown and everything, and the very weird playoff final at an empty Wembley. So that was a disappointing result in that game, but obviously our absolute goal always was to get back into the EFL. So although our first season back hasn't been as good as we hoped for, I'm really happy still that we've made that achievement. That's really important for the club's future. But yeah, it's been I think a fantastic time from our point of view. It's been great to meet so many people around the club, and all you supporters of the club are the foundation of the club, the people who are always here, who are always going to be here in the future. So it's fantastic to see the engagement that everyone has for the club, and thank you very much for your kind words, and hope that the club can be even more successful in the future.
Thanks, Chris. One of the marks of a successful club is often its attendances, and I think, Alex, this season in particular, attendance figures have been amazing, almost 11,000 on average. How heartening is that for you and Chris to see those numbers coming through the turnstiles?
It's fantastic to see. I think it's the highest average attendance since, what is it, 1991 or yeah, it's just brilliant, and I think that's another thing that we've really appreciated during our time here, and that I just think is fantastic to look at when we are here on the Saturdays and we look up at the board and see the attendance numbers. It's just absolutely fantastic, and that's another part that we really enjoy seeing, that we can hopefully keep growing that, and yeah, we really appreciative of all the fans' support.
And as difficult as it makes my life as the marketing man, I know that Joe is very keen to grow attendances even further. How far do you think we can go in terms of attendances at matches, Joe?
I think there's a lot more room. I think already, this season it's already started quite well in terms of season ticket sales. So you might have seen the post, but effectively in the first 2 days we hit 1,000 season ticket sales, and last year that took us a week to hit that same number. So really positive, and there's I think 175 new within that period as well. So long, we hope that continues to go as well. So there's I think the way we're approaching our attendances next year, there's going to be a lot more promotion and marketing. I think there's a lot of people that don't necessarily know our fixtures. I think we assume that people understand, that they come to our website, they can see, when we're playing next, but we need to get out there more. And I think I've spoken about this before, about how we become more of a citizen of Nottingham and utilise all the sort of engagement and marketing opportunities that we can, and working with partners to help promote our games and matches. So there's a lot of work to do. Obviously all the data transformations are a really key part from a marketing perspective, about how we can engage more people, grow the database, grow the number of people that are interested, and obviously with season tickets at the price they are over the road, makes things a little bit better for us over here potentially. But lots and lots going on. Like I talked about the primary programme and everything we're trying to do there. So it's all about trying to engage more people and make people more aware of what's happening here and when our matches are. So there's a lot we can do that doesn't just rely on what happens on the pitch, and we've got to make sure we're doing all of that. And obviously you guys, with word of mouth to your friends as well, and encouraging them to come down. It's we've got a lot of opportunity to grow more, and there's a lot of capacity. So I'm really looking forward to next season.
Thank you, Joe. We will be wrapping up shortly. Have anybody else got any burning questions? Now is the time. Yes, in the back there. So it's all right. It's just for the stream, so people can hear back at home. Otherwise, they'll have 20 seconds of silence and wonder what's going on, and it'll be my fault probably.
Definitely.
Just bearing in mind the state of the city council and the issues apparently across the river, are there any issues with the lease here, or are you perhaps looking at putting in a cheeky bid for the land?
No, there's no issues at all with the lease here. We've thankfully the Hayden Green Trust has we've got a very good long lease here, so we're all very secured in a good position.
Thank you for the question. Has anybody else got a question before we wrap up? Yes, is that Sarah? Hello, Sarah. Kira's going to bring the microphone over to you.
My question's, have you looked into adult mascots?
No.
Yeah.
No. No, I think it's something that you see up and down the country with other teams. It's really something that we want to offer to kids. It's a really exciting opportunity for them to walk out into the ground with their idols. I think going down an adult mascots could be quite tricky. So no, I think we'll certainly keep the policy as it is at the moment, in line with most other clubs in the country.
Thanks, Sarah. Any other questions? Last chance. Okay. Oh yes, lady in the white top. In injury time, that was.
So just going back to capitalising on the expensive prices over the river, is there maybe something you could and I know personally a few Forest fans that have started attending games here. Family tickets. Try and do it as a group, so sort of 2 adults, 3 kids. Bring the prices down a little bit, fill the stadium up.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's understanding whether it's something that we, would generate, a lot more in attendances. We've obviously had certain matches in the season last year and previous seasons where we've done special deals. Whether they've actually, what our research has shown, it hasn't necessarily generated the sort of knock-on effect from having those kind of things. But yeah, certainly family tickets is a possibility. Certainly in the family stand, if we've got the opportunity to put more people in there, we will. And certainly some of the offers that we would offer through the primary programme would be catered along those lines as well. But yeah, no, we've certainly seen a lot of Forest fans and in fact Forest season ticket holders that are now season ticket holders here as well. So yeah, it's good.
Thank you very much. Right, this is literally the last call, last opportunity. Okay. Yes, of course you can. The final word of the night goes to you.
I just want to say on behalf of fans how grateful we are that we're doing these forums this evening. So just thank you very much for keeping these going and keeping everybody in the loop.
No problem at all, our pleasure. Thanks for that, Rob. Yeah, it's absolutely our pleasure. Before we wrap up, I can see our safety officer Dave staring at me to remind you all that the off-site car park will close fairly shortly after this forum. So don't go to the nav for a pint and leave your car there, because you'll probably find the gates locked. So that's just a word of warning. Go and collect your cars as soon as you can after we wrap up here. It's been a really enjoyable evening. We do enjoy these sort of opportunities to talk a bit more about the strategy of the club. We value you all so much. As Alex was talking about, the attendances this season have been incredible, and for clubs at our level, as much as we're trying to increase our revenues in other areas, attendances at matches are the lifeblood of clubs at this level. So thank you all very much for your support all the way through the season. All that's left to do is a big round of applause for my panel. And I wish you all a safe journey home and an enjoyable summer. Thanks very much.